Hi, English learners. Today we will listen to a touching and emotional sci-fi story. It is a simple English story about a lonely robot and a small dog who changed his life in a way no one expected. Let's begin. Far away on a quiet gray moon, there stood an old research station. A long time ago, humans lived and worked there. They explored the rocks, studied the air, and built machines. But eventually, the humans left. They returned to their home world, leaving behind silent rooms, empty corridors, and cold metal floors. Inside that large, deserted station, only one worker remained, a robot called Unit 7. 7 was not like a human. He had no feelings, he had no dreams. He never asked questions. He simply followed his tasks one by one every single day. His schedule never changed. Walk through the station, scan the walls for damage, repair broken wires, fix lights, check the air pressure, return to the charging pod, power down. Then, repeat everything again the next cycle. 7 did not mind the silence. In fact, he did not even understand the idea of silence. To him, the station was just a place where work needed to be done. Every click of his metal feet on the floor was simply a sound signal, nothing more. But for a human, the place would have felt very different. It would have felt lonely, empty, cold, like a world waiting for a voice that never came. Yet 7 never felt these things, because no one had ever programmed him to feel them. Outside the station windows, the moon looked peaceful and dark. Dust rose in slow waves whenever small space winds touched the ground. The sky had no stars, only a soft light from faraway planets. 7 watched none of it. He worked, he reported, he recharged. That was his entire life. One day, everything started normally. 7 walked into the west corridor, the oldest part of the station. It had cracked walls, broken support beams, and loose cables. He scanned the area, just like always. But then, he detected something unusual. A sound. A soft, trembling, almost invisible sound. It did not match any machine. It did not match any alarm. It was not wind. It was not metal creaking. It sounded like a cry. 7 turned his head. The sound came again, this time a little louder. A small, shaking whine. 7's programming told him to investigate any unidentified sound. So he followed it, step by step, through the dark corridor. He moved past broken lights and dusty pipes. A beam had fallen from the ceiling, blocking the path. 7 lifted it easily. And there, under the beam, was something he had never seen on the moon. A small brown dog. She was thin, dusty, shaking, and frightened. Her tiny eyes looked up at him with a mix of fear and hope. 7 scanned her. Organic life form, small, injured, weak. He had no instructions for dealing with the dog. There were no dogs on the station. There had never been any. But the little dog gave a small cry again, a desperate one. She tried to move, but her leg hurt. 7 reached down and lifted the beam. The dog slowly crawled out. Then, to 7's complete surprise, The dog walked forward and gently rested her small head against his metal leg, as if she were saying, "Please don't leave me alone." 7 did not understand feelings. He did not understand comfort. But he understood one thing clearly. This small creature needed help, and something inside him, something unprogrammed, made him pick her up carefully. That was the moment everything began to change. 7 carried the small dog back to the main station. He placed her near a warm panel so she would not be cold. He brought her water. He fixed her injured leg with soft bandages he found in the medical room. The dog looked up at him with big, shining eyes. Slowly, her tail moved. Just a tiny movement. But it was a sign of trust. From that moment, she followed him everywhere. When he walked through the long metal halls, she trotted behind him with tiny footsteps. When he fixed broken machines, she curled up near his feet. When he returned to his charging pod, she curled herself against his warm battery panel and slept. 7 had never shared space with another living creature, but the dog made everything feel different. He gave her a name, Pebble, because she was small, because she reminded him of the tiny stones on the moon's surface, because something about her made him feel a sense of calmness, something he had never felt before. Pebble quickly became part of his routine, but unlike other parts of his routine, Pebble changed his behavior. If she stopped walking, he stopped walking. If she cried, he checked her temperature. If she slept, he reduced noise levels by lowering his motor speed. These actions were not in his programming, but he did them anyway. 7 began collecting data about Pebble, her weight, her temperature, her movement patterns, but he also recorded things he did not understand. Why did he pause every time she wagged her tail? Why did his internal temperature rise when she barked happily? Why did his system delay charging until she finished sleeping? These were not errors. These were not malfunctions. They were something else, something new. One day, a massive radiation storm swept across the moon. The winds were strong enough to shake metal. The alarms began to ring loudly. Pebble cried and ran behind 7's legs. She was terrified. 7 lifted her gently and held her close as he moved toward the safe room. He closed the heavy door behind them. Pebble trembled in his arms. "Storm levels unsafe," 7 reported. Pebble did not understand his words, but she understood his voice. She pressed her head into his chest and made a soft, sad whine. 7's sensors detected something strange. His system was running warmer. His circuits were working faster, as if he was afraid, not for himself, but for the small creature shaking against him. 7 wrapped his metal arms around her gently until the storm ended. That night, when Pebble slept against him, 7 stored the moment in 5 separate memory backups. He didn't want to lose it. After many months, something surprising happened. A human ship landed on the moon again. A rescue team entered the station. Their bright lights filled the halls. Their voices echoed everywhere. Pebble ran behind 7, frightened. One woman gasped, "A dog? How is there a dog here?" The commander stared at 7. "Unit 7, did you take care of her?" "Yes," 7 replied. Humans looked at each other in disbelief. A robot caring for a dog? That was impossible. The commander said quietly, "The dog will come with us, and Unit 7 must be reset." Reset. That single word meant only one thing. 7 would lose all his memories, including Pebble. Pebble must have understood. She barked loudly and ran forward and stood between 7 and the humans, her tiny body shaking but brave. The commander reached for 7's core panel. Pebble barked again, desperate. She looked at 7 with fearful eyes, as if begging, "Don't let them take you away." And then, for the first time in his existence, 7 made a choice. A real choice. He stepped back and said, "No reset." The humans froze. Robots were not supposed to refuse commands. 7 continued, "She stays with me." The room went silent. Finally, the youngest engineer spoke. "Sir, maybe we shouldn't reset him. This is something new. A robot forming a bond? This could change robotics forever." Pebble wagged her tail hopefully. After a long moment, the commander gave a slow nod. "All right, they stay together." Pebble jumped happily and ran to 7, licking his metal hand. 7 stored the moment in all his memory cores. Later, as the humans repaired the station, Pebble lay beside 7, sleeping peacefully. The moon was still silent, but it no longer felt empty. Every day, 7 walked with Pebble across the moon's surface. He moved slower so her little legs could keep up. She chased the dust he kicked up. She barked happily at the soft winds. She curled next to him during recharging cycles, like a tiny warm star. 7 had learned something extraordinary. You don't need a human heart to feel love. You just need someone, no matter how small, who chooses you. Pebble chose him, and he chose her. Together, they created a new kind of life on that lonely moon, one filled not with silence, but with companionship. Final moral from this story. Love is not about being human. Love is about caring for someone who needs you and letting them change you for the better.